Something's brewing over at Army Painter, and they've been giving away a bunch of these boxes to some of their loyal painters, hobbyists, and fans. And as always, I'm going to test and experiment to see what these paints are all about. We've got a Burning Ore Orange, a green skin, and finally an Imperial Navy blue colour. These brand new Fanatic paints come with an updated label to the paint pot from the current design. To test these paints, I first matched these as close as I could with the labels of the existing paint range. But after using these paints for the first time, I actually switched out a couple of these colours to get the nearest like for like. As the majority of the time hobbyists will use either a white or a black undercoat, then I prepped some Goblin test models with a ghost grey and a black surface primer from 𝗉𝗫. There's also another Goblin that we'll test with a different method at the end of the video. Army Painter suggests that we're going to get better coverage and a more intense pigmentation to the paint. So let's test this out. And what better way than using the orange first. We're matching up the new Burning Ore and the existing Lava Orange paint. One blob of each was put onto the palette and then the same amount of water was added to each. About a 1:1 ratio. After stirring and letting it settle for a while, the Lava Orange then began to separate and you could see more of the white palette underneath. So the Burning Ore should give us better coverage on the miniature. Let's test that theory out. Now, orange is notoriously known for being absolutely rubbish for coverage on miniatures. Now for me, I've gone through multiple brands and I've never found a colour that I've really liked. Well, that is until speed paint came along, but that's a slightly different style of painting altogether. A mythical orange from the existing paint range was painted onto the backs of these goblins. For the white undercoat, it looked pretty good after 2 layers, but it was given a 3rd just to give it that full coverage. And for the black after 3, it was just, well, what can I say? So here is the new Burning Ore colour and we'll paint this on the front of the goblins. The first thing that I immediately noticed whilst using these paints is that they cover superbly well. Even after adding just a smidge of water to thin down the paint slightly on the palette. Just to help it get that smoother finish. I mean, even after 1 coat on the black, it looks so much better than having 3 layers of the mythical orange from before. And on the white, it's definitely a winner. After applying a 2nd layer of orange to the black goblin, we indeed managed to have our full coverage. However, one method of getting complete coverage with mythical orange on a black miniature is to just slap it on. A quick tip from me is to not always go by the label. I originally thought that mythical orange would be the closest to the new Burning Ore colour. However, in fact it was Lava Orange that resembled a closer match. So I'm not sure at this moment in time if Army Painter plan to add to an existing range, or if they're going to replace the whole of the existing acrylic paint range. However, with these paints being near enough identical to some of the existing paints, I'm gonna guess here and think that they're gonna go for a complete overhaul. And if so, Army Painter, please give me some better yellows and a few more browns, please. But more importantly, I know that they listen to feedback from customers and painters alike. So my question to you guys would be, what paints would you like to see in the range, either to be replaced, and also what brand new colours you would like to see introduced?
Give me Citadel's Rhinox Hide!
We now know that these paints have a better pigmentation, the new formula, and I was looking at this little chart thing on the front and it got me thinking. These paints technically should make a good wash. Adding a little bit of our Imperial Navy to some quick shade wash mixing medium, we're able to utilise the intense pigmentation in the paint and thin this down slightly to create our new wash, and thus giving us some of those lighter tones that we saw on that chart. So if you ever run out of your blue tone or you just don't have any, then you will be able to create your own with these new paints, and they will pretty much look the same. And if you can get multiple uses out of the same paint pot, then I always think it's value for money. Which brings me to my bonus 7th goblin. And we're going to see how this new formulaed paint range goes through an airbrush. We're just going to add a couple dots of burning ore, and 2 more with some airbrush flow improver from 𝗉𝗄𝐿. Giving it a little stir so it mixes well in the cup. This paint glides onto the miniature so nicely and super smooth, like a fine buttery Werther's original. So as base coats go from a traditional non-airbrush paint, this has come out really well. And of course I had to use the paints on some test miniatures, and these orcs were prime candidates. I gotta give it to Army Painter because I am super impressed with the coverage on these paints, and that orange is just amazeballs. But more importantly, what do you guys think? Thanks for watching, and keep on hobbying!